Hi, this is another episode of the 4.0 Impact series, where we interview CTOs, CEOs, co-founders of companies that are doing really interesting stuff in our space, green tech, climate tech across Europe and North America predominantly. Today I'm here with René Haas from a really cool company out of Berlin called NeoCarbon that have created a process and created a product that a direct air capture product that removes CO2 from air via retrofitting existing cooling towers. So we'll jump straight into it, René. You'll do a much better job explaining exactly what you guys do than I will. So if you wouldn't mind just giving us a bit of an introduction first into yourself and into NeoCarbon.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. And I'm René, one of the co-founders of NeoCarbon. From background, industrial engineer. Previously worked at the industry at Siemens Energy, then in consulting, and then in the startup scene before feeling ready to start my own company, which I did now with NeoCarbon. We retrofit industrial cooling towers to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. Like a general problem is there's too much CO2 in the atmosphere, so it's the main driver for climate change. So we have to remove the CO2 from ambient air. The other problem is that it's very diluted. So what you normally do with direct air capture is you need to create a gigantic airflow, because you have to analyze basically a lot of molecules till you find the right CO2 molecule. This gigantic airflow you create gets in contact with a sorbent. This sorbent absorbs the CO2. Normally, after 60 minutes, material is saturated, can't capture more. You heat up your system, 80, 90 degrees, sometimes 100, depends a bit on your chemicals. And then you release the CO2. So this second part, the absorption, is like 15 minutes. So overall, 75-minute cycle time. The problem with this current solution is it's super expensive. So if we would remove everything just with the normal direct air capture approach, it would cost 20-25% of world GDP. So super unrealistic to scale this. So this market can't work. So for us at NeoCarbon, it's important to cut the cost of DAC, so direct air capture. And we do this by retrofitting industrial cooling towers. The advantage here are mainly four things. The first thing is we get the airflow kind of for free. So we don't need certain energy, but also not the hardware to create this kind of airflow, because the air in the cooling tower is already moving.
Understood.
Second thing is all the hardware CapEx saves. So of course it's the fan, like we don't have to build this, but also all the infrastructure around the cooling tower. So the streets, halls, and all of this. So no further groundwork, all of this. So there's a big advantage compared to building it in the middle of nowhere on the green field. The third advantage, when you have a cooling tower, you have waste heat, because that's the only thing cooling towers are doing. They basically evaporate water to cool down industrial processes. And water is exactly what we need for our desorption. So when we want to release the CO2 from the sorbent again. And the fourth advantage, which is especially in our go-to-market, is that we can directly put it in industries that need it as an input. So we capture it on your roof, and whatever you do which needs CO2 as an input, we can directly put it in your product. Can be chemicals, can be concrete. For example, before the whole infrastructure is ready, which is now being built in form of like carbon pipelines and sequestration infrastructure. Yeah, I would say that's the technology in a nutshell. And with this, we are aiming to really cut the cost from this, so like 1,000 ton down to really something which is more economically feasible, more in the direction of like 100 to 200 euros per ton.
Understood. Well, look, we've so we have been speaking. We've spoken several occasions over the last few months, and you've been a difficult man to pin down, mostly because you was working through like a funding round. So you've recently been through a successful raise. So yeah, if you could just give us a bit of insight into that, maybe who some of your investment partners are, because I think that's quite, yeah, it's quite relevant to the industry that we're in.
Yeah. So yeah, Incorporated was it the company in January, and there we got the first convertible from Antler, so a Singapore-based VC. From there on, we worked very close with the partners together, so they really helped us in getting intros to more VCs. I think then I talked to over 100 by now, so we got a lot of warm intros. So really working with that via the network we've been building. And it was very important to talk to everyone, to really choose the one where you think is right for you at the current stage as well. And there we choose PropTech One and Speed Invest. They co-lead the round, so they are equal in terms of investment at this point. And then we had a small portion for angel investors. So people where we believe they can really help us also on a strategic end, or people that have been very early believers. So there are 1-2 people that are not the typical angels, but they helped us so tremendously in the beginning that we said, okay, you can also come in as an investor. But in general, we kept the round quite small, only to the amount we needed to reach the next milestones. Basically, this was the goal with this round. But yeah, was super intense. So a lot of conversations, hundreds of pitching sessions of NeoCarbon.
Very intense, very intense. But you secured the funding. It's fairly recently. What was it, in the last month, the last 6 weeks?
So it was actually the round was then at the notary was end of July.
Right.
So in total, from first convertible to a proper round, including product development on all of this, it took us then 7 months to get the funding. And I would say that the pure fundraising process was maybe 3 months from the first contacts to really sitting at the notary and signing all the documents.
Okay, so that was the end of July.
End of July, yeah, I think was the last day of July.
Right. And what was the last since the funding hit? What was the story look like for the last X amount of weeks?
Yeah, so afterwards it was a lot scaling the team for us. So we worked a lot with interns at the beginning, and we had really super strong interns, like really smart people. But of course it's different when they leave after a time, and then you can't make the progress because then they are just leaving.
Cool, sure.
So now we hiring more full-time people. We found them very smart people, I would say. So we recruited mechanical engineers, one, for example, from Oxford, PhD, another one, a PhD from Cambridge, a chemist. And so really scaling this technical team up, but also getting the right advisors on board. So we try to work with very senior people that have manufacturing experience of 10, 15 years, but also very experienced chemists and chemical process engineers. So really scaling this team up.
So domain experts.
Yeah, really domain experts. But we do a lot of external as well. So we have a lot of strong external advisors. So we're really experienced people from whom we can learn quite fast. We don't have to hire those industry experts right away, because that's of course quite hard. But to have them in our network and talking to them on a weekly basis basically helps our team to really learn fast and move fast forward. And then it was a lot around really building the product. So the first product iteration was very rough, I would say. It showed the overall concept and how it was working. Now it was more way proper product with way more sensors and way more technology, I would say. And this is something we also just finished, and now we are iterating on this.
Right.
So
it was an MVP initially, and then what the funding has allowed you to do is to refine that, increase the functionality, and yeah, I suppose just get it more market ready, so then you can scale.
Yeah, also in terms of size. So the first one was very small. This one is already bigger. It's still lab scale, but now we are talking with very big industry players around building something which is way bigger, that can capture several tons per year, and installing this on an industrial plant. So really this funding will enable us not only to scale the team, but in the next step, so also next year more or less, to really build something in an industrial setup.
Okay, yeah, interesting. So just to conclude, the funding is not only from a product perspective, but it's going to allow you to then go out, scale the team, grow the company, and then obviously increase the impact from that perspective.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not only for product. Also, we are aiming for public grants, because it's a very R&D heavy project, what we are doing. And especially in Germany, we got the first grants there for early stage startups. Then we got a bit of money from the European Union. But especially when it's R&D heavy, it makes a lot of sense to look in those grants. And there are a lot of things out there that can really help you in the early days. And I wish I have known this earlier, but for some grants, we are already too mature. Really looking into this early and thinking, okay, what kind of grants can I get? What kind of public money can I get? Even though it takes some months till you get it, but especially when you start the company, it really gives you this advantage that you have already some money to work with, which is super crucial for a business like ours, because we are building hardware, obviously. Yeah, we need money.
Yeah, very costly.
Yes.
Yeah, look, a little. I never normally ask this, but because the business is so so young, and it's recently funded, and you've kind of been through that. Is there any kind of one piece of advice that you would offer anyone that's perhaps sitting there thinking about maybe doing something similar in terms of like a similar venture, having kind of lived and breathed it for the last sort of 12 months, what the one bit of advice you would give?
So especially when it comes to fundraising, we thought at the beginning, okay, we can take a shortcut and just talk to a few investors, and they liked us, and then okay, we just closed the round and that's it. For us, that's not really how it worked. So at the end, it was really about building this momentum, building this trust, because also investors, they check within your network, are you an interesting company, are you an interesting startup for them, and they want this kind of validation. And also for you, it helps you to find, okay, is this really the right investor? Because it's not only that you get money, but you also have to give away shares, so you have to be very careful whom you want, and we see it more as this like partnership.
Yeah.
That's why it makes sense to really open it, even though like you have to pitch then 100 times. But it really makes sense to talk to everybody and see who's really the right fit for you, because you have a very long relationship with your investors. So this is definitely something I would recommend, where we thought, okay, we just take a shortcut. People like us, we do it in a month. But it really makes sense to look for the investor that perfectly fits you and supports you in the sense you want it.
And be prepared to pitch, and be prepared to go on the road.
Yeah, you have to like it. It's really, you tell the same story all over and over and over again. Of course, we had a gigantic Q&A sheet, 17 pages. But you can't expect that everyone is reading your book before they have a meeting with you. So that's just how it is. So they will ask the same questions, but it's a good training, because a lot of those questions are actually also helped us to see, okay, is this a real problem? Is this not a problem? So it also helped us to move forward. but also
it helped you refine on the go. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Interesting.
yes.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. While we've been in fundraising, we still continued to building the product. So we wanted to move the product still forward. So we had a very strong split between my co-founder and me. So basically, I was mainly responsible for fundraising, and he had still some capacities to really move the product forward,
Right.
and not just waiting till the money comes.
Understood. So I'm curious, was the product as it is now, is it very different to how you initially planned it when you know, at the beginning of the business, at the beginning of the company?
For now, it's of course still a direct air capture module. So I would say in that sense it's similar, but from a technical point of view, and when you really look below and how is it structured in detail, it's way more mature, where at the beginning it was more a vision, and also now we have to validate a lot. So I think the product is changing still a lot. What the product is doing is still the same, so it's really about like removing CO2 from the atmosphere. But yeah, it's permanently changing based a lot on the input we get, on the new learnings we get, on the new partners we are signing. So it's still like changing a lot, but more on a like in depth, but not on a high level. On a high level, I think it stayed the same.
Yeah, in principle, understood. Yeah, look, René, I'll you know, we'll kind of end it here. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and for me, it's hugely encouraging to see people like yourself and you know, and the wider team at NeoCarbon attacking the CO2 problem at an industrial level, especially when the fundamental part of the business is that you can retrofit, you know, existing infrastructure. So, you know, there's no need to go out and build anything else. You can just retrofit. So it's a really smart business, and I can see why there was a lot of interest from green VCs, and it sounds like in the partners that you've chosen, you found people that share your mission and share your passion to tackle this problem. So yeah, look, wishing you and the team all the luck in the world, and I'm looking forward to watching you guys grow.
Yeah, thank you, all the best to you too. Thanks for
jumping on this. Cheers, René.
Yeah, cheers. Bye.